What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Feeling good today. There's been some pretty cool stuff going on, and I don't know, just feeling good about the channel and everything's been happening. Obviously you guys don't know about it at the time I'm filming this. I'm pretty sure episode 36 of the R31 came out 2 days ago, but yeah, by the time you're watching this you'll know. There's just been some pretty cool stuff happening. Everything's sort of coming together, and I'm just feeling good about the channel. So, feeling good about driving. Everything's pretty good. So anyway, today is the 16th or 17th of August? Saturday the 17th of August. So I went drifting on the 9th, which was last Friday. And if you haven't seen that video, go and watch it. So that was a good shakedown run, but as probably anyone who's seen the video knows, there are a few things I have to sort out with the 31. So that is what this video is going to be all about. I've got to go and get my R31 from my mate's place. I'm going to take it out to the workshop and start fixing all the things that I need to fix to have it sort of going pretty well. So I was sick to drive again. I'm pretty stoked. I was hoping to drive Archerfield the Thursday just gone, but I ended up having to work pretty much all through the week. I didn't have time to get the issues with the car sorted, and then I had to work on Thursday anyway, so I just didn't quite get there. But this coming week, there is Archerfield on the Thursday, there's another Friday night drift on the Friday, and there's an all-day session at Archerfield on the Saturday. And I'm going to try and get to all three. So I'm hoping to drift 3 days this week, this coming week, so I've got to go get the car sorted, and hopefully that's all good. I do have to work one day next week. I'm not sure what day it's going to be yet, so hopefully it's not Thursday or Friday. Hopefully whatever day I have to work, or whatever I have to do, they can make it sort of Tuesday or Wednesday, and hopefully I can have Thursday, Friday off to go drifting. But we'll just see what happens. Hopefully I get all this stuff sorted with the 31, and by then it's dead reliable, and I can just go 3 days drifting. That'd be awesome. Be like Matsuri. Like heaps of seat time really fast at 2 different tracks. Obviously I've not yet driven Archie, as a lot of you know, so I'm pretty excited to drive Archie, especially now that I know the car's steering and doing everything pretty well, so I'm pretty keen. Also, as you can see here, I've got some more tyres. So I've got another 6 of those win runs, so I've got another 3 sets. So that should do me for these 3 days, even if all goes well. That Friday night drift, I did 8 laps, didn't even go through half a set of tyres, so they're pretty good. About these tyres, just this is not an advertisement. I don't have a deal with this website or anything, but the tyre shop I normally get my tyres through couldn't get me win runs, and I wanted to get them just because I know the tyre and I know they last, and I know they're a good tyre, and I really wanted them because they're really good for seat time. Because they're really skatey, they're not very grippy, they're not that good if you're pretty seriously trying to drift, but just for seat time and just like skatey, sliding, just driving, they last forever. They don't make much smoke, but they're good for that. So he couldn't get me the win runs in the size I wanted. I was explaining this to a bloke that I work with, and he was telling me that he's got a mate that started this website. He's from Sydney. It's called Tyre Ruler or something like that. Either way, I ordered these tyres. They were 50 bucks each. I ordered them on Thursday morning. They were at my house on Friday morning, literally overnight from Sydney to the Sunshine Coast. And the way this website works is that they give you like a code to share, and if other people use your code, or like you get other people to buy tyres, they then give you a discount. So if you're chasing cheap tyres and you want them delivered, hit me up, because I'll give you like my little code. That way, if you want to buy tyres, they're cheap and they get delivered, plus then I get like a rebate for the tyres that I bought. And like I said, it's not like a sponsorship deal or anything. If you buy tyres, you'll get a code that you can then share with your friends as well. So I figure, like, as a little bit of a drift community thing, we can probably just bounce this off each other a fair bit. Like, everyone can sort of bounce it around, and everyone should hopefully get some pretty cheap tyres out of it. So the bloke I normally get tyres off, I probably will still try and get a lot of tyres off him, because it's just he fits them and stuff for me for pretty much nothing as well. But he couldn't get the win runs. He could only get new tyres to try, which I'm happy to do. I do really want to try a few different sets of tyres. I would like to again find a tyre that's a bit grippier and softer, that makes more smoke, that bakes a bit more, that's cheap, that I can get readily as well. But as far as at the moment, just trying to get the car sorted and get the shakedown done and get lots of seat time, I really just wanted to stick with the tyre I knew, and through this site I could get the win runs in the sizes I need. So I went ahead and did that, so I'm pretty happy with those. So yeah, if you want to get some cheap tyres, hit me up. I'll give you the code, and yeah, that way you help me out. And then if you get a code, shoot it to me, and then I'll use that code next to my buy tyres, and then that helps you out. So I figure that's what we can do. Hopefully we can just bounce it around. Anyway, as well as fixing a few issues with the 31, got a few cool little upgrades to do. So that's enough babbling from me as the opening of this video. You sort of know what's going on. So I'm gonna go get a coffee, I'm gonna go get my car, and I'm gonna head to the workshop. It's gonna be a late start, but that's all right. Don't have a heap of work to do. And I'll, yeah, do that tonight and tomorrow, and then come back. That boost control issue, I'm gonna just try disconnect the wastegate and go for a drive, like just with the wastegate flap open, see if it makes any boost. That way it'll tell me whether it's the actuator that is incorrect or it could actually be a 1-bar actuator. I was talking to Sam White, Whitey's Wiring, for all of yous that follow Whitey's Wiring, and he actually brought up a good point that it might be a 1-bar actuator, being the fact that it's a Chinese internally gated turbo. For me, I just assumed it was a 1/2 bar, or 7 PSI, just because that's what the one that I bought that was wrong was a 1/2 bar. But when I went back and actually checked the eBay listing for the turbo that I bought, it doesn't say anything about the actuator. So it could very well be a 1-bar actuator. It could, like, it might not be that the wastegate port is too small, the actuator might just be 1 bar. So big thanks to Sam for bringing that to my attention. Obviously I've used Chinese turbos a lot, but never an internally gated one. This is the first internally gated Chinese turbo I've ever used. So easy way to test, as he pointed out, which was really smart as well, is just disconnect the wastegate flap from the actuator, go for a drive, see if it makes any boost. That way you know whether the wastegate port is adequate. So if it's not making boost, I know that the wastegate port is adequate for the combo, and that way I know that it is actually the wastegate. But if I disconnect the wastegate flap and it still makes a fair bit of boost, well then I know that I'm going to have boost control issues with the size of the wastegate port. So there are a few options there which I'll explore if it becomes a problem, but for now I'm gonna go and do it. Sorry for pretty much always opening these videos pretty much in the car, guys. I don't know, it's just sort of easy and convenient for me because, like, I don't really like to vlog in the house, and usually I'm just running stuff out to the car to pack in. So I don't know, it's just easy to open it in the car while it's all fresh in my head and about to start my day, bit of a vlog sort of thing. But let me know in the comments if you hate that or what the go is. I don't know, I sort of just want to make sure my videos are easy to watch for everyone and enjoyable. So let me know if there's anything you think I should change. Always open to suggestion. Righto guys, got here, unloaded, unpacked, as you can see. Shed's in a bit of a state at the moment. We're having a real big cleanup, especially over that corner. So apologies for that. But anyway, it's all right. I don't need any of that stuff, so that's cool. So got the 31 warmed up, got it up on the hoist. Just having a look around all over everything. Obviously, as I already knew, this sump plug is a problem. It is leaking. I've got some new ones to try, hopefully, because the thread on the actual bung is pretty damaged, but I'm pretty sure the thread's actually in the sump. I'm pretty sure they're okay. So I've got a couple of new sump plugs that I got from Repco, a few different sizes because I didn't know what size it actually was to try. Hopefully that works out all right. There's a little bit of oil on the gearbox down here on like the slave and the boot and that, and a fair bit of gearbox oil around the place. I took the boot off and had a look down at the around the clutch area and stuff with a torch. I don't think it's main seal or anything. The gearbox breather is just up there, so I'm pretty sure that is just gearbox oil that's come out the breather. Needless to say, I will pull this bung or this filler hole and make sure that there is still enough oil in there. And I did find the cause of all the noise. So yeah, that's not cool. Also, this rear uni is a bit hairy going. So that's going to be some of the noise. The actual tinging noise, like the rattle, is this little backing plate on the center bearing, and then obviously the thud is that center bearing. So obviously I've done something, unless I've already shut a center bearing, which I find hard to believe in what I did. I think I must have definitely missed something and put that back together wrong, or yeah, something's gone wrong there. So I'm gonna have to pull the tail shaft out and sort of investigate the cause of that. Yeah, maybe I might have put it in backwards or something. I don't know, I find that hard to believe, but either way, it's certainly not very good the way it is. So I'm gonna have to pull it out. Hopefully I can sort that out. I know that a lot of people do shit center bearings very often, especially in cars this low, but I feel like that shouldn't have shut that quick. So I'll definitely pull that out, have a look at it. Hopefully it's something simple that I can fix, because I really want it fixed this weekend so I can keep going drifting. Anyway, I've got the car sort of warmed up at the moment. So what I'm gonna do actually, because it got so hot, I'm gonna do a compression test. Firstly, just to make sure I haven't done any head gasket damage, which I don't think I have, because the water I don't know, it's sort of hard to tell. Like there's no water, oil sitting on top in the water, but the water is very milky because of the bars leak I put through it. So it's hard to diagnose straight away. It's not sort of, there's no moisture coming out the exhaust or anything. There's nothing really funny going on, but just for peace of mind and for the fact that I never actually did a compression test on this engine after I built it, I sort of just want to do a comp test. So I'm going to do a comp test, and then I'll probably get going on changing out this oil. The oil should be alright because it is Penrite. It's really good oil. It shouldn't be too bad, but that oil did get to like 120 degrees Celsius, which is the sort of point where oil starts to separate and break down. So I'd rather just not risk it. Plus it's got that lifter stuff in it, so I figure it's best just to change it out. Obviously it's running oil as well, so I'll just, for what it's worth, it's not worth the work of how much I put into the engine. So do the oil change out the water for coolant. Obviously while I'm at that, I've got to do all of my fan changing over and stuff. So anyway, first things first, compression test. Alright, so we've got cylinder 1, about 112 or so, and plug looks good. Alright, so for those of you who remember when I built this engine, the number 2 plug thread was a bit dicky. I had to sort of recut it pretty carefully. And I actually, when I just tried to put the compression tester down there, this just got a little bit stuck in that thread, and then when I wound it back out, it actually undid from the adapter. So I'm not going to try that again, so I'm not going to do number 2, but the plug looks good, same as number 1. So basically as long as the other 5 are even, then I'll be pretty happy. Alrighty, number 3, exactly the same, about that 112. And this plug just looks like it's been a bit lean, a little bit hotter maybe, but still good enough. Righto, so number 4's just got a little bit more, and plug looks very similar to 3 where it's just been a bit lean, but obviously with how hot the motor did get, I would expect them to be around that colour. That's pretty normal, but it's not bad anyway. Compression's even so far, so we'll chuck it in 5. Righto guys, so number 5 is again around that 112, and plug looks good. So once again, pretty good, just number 6 to go. Alrighty, and number 6 is again that 112 on the dot, and plug looks good. So compression test comes back all good. That's really nice. So when you're doing compression tests, guys, obviously just to disconnect your coil or all your coil packs, whatever engine you're doing it on, full throttle and just hit the key and get it to crank over. Try not to get too hung up on what you think compression should be or what people on the internet say compression should be for your engine, because there's just so many variables that will determine how it tests up as, including what compression tester it's done with, whether the engine's hot or cold. Yeah, there's so many variables, how the rings are gapped. Like a lot of people would probably say that 112 is fairly low compression for a fresh RB30 with high comp pistons, but I did gap those rings quite generously because I planned on boosting it. So yeah, trying to get too hung up on that. What you're really looking for, especially diagnosing head gasket issues, is just whether it's even or not, and that obviously apart from number 2, which I couldn't check, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that number 2 is pretty much even at that 112 PSI. So yeah, that's good. It's a good start. So that's problem A done. So now I'll probably just run it, get it a bit hot again, and dump this oil and water. So you can see here, this is the sump plug I had in it, and you can see how the threads are very average. So what I did have, I had this sort of loaded up with gas thread tape to try and give it a bit more bite, but I wasn't game to try and do this up too tight in the sump because I knew it would probably strip. So it wasn't done up that tight. It did have a new copper cross washer in it, but obviously it just was weeping that little bit. So I'm hoping that the threads in the sump are good enough that I can get away with just a new plug, but I'm still going to have to be careful not to do it up very tight. But once it's completely emptied, I'll have another look at the threads in the sump, and hopefully they're okay. But yeah, oil's a bit dark. Pretty glad to be changing it. I'll have a good look at it and make sure there's no nasties in it. But it looked fairly clean, apart from the fact that it's pretty dark already. But anyway, all things considered, it's good. It's all good. So this here is my assortment of new sump plugs that I bought, because obviously I had no idea what size this one, and I knew it wasn't the regular size of a 30 sump plug because someone's modified it. So I didn't know until I was going to get it out of the car. It looks to be like a M14, which is about right, because I think stock they're about an M12. So hopefully this sump plug gets me out of trouble. Alright, so no success. It's pretty hard to tell with a bolt that's this stripped, but when comparing it to that M14, this is an M14 by 1.5. I think this one might be a finer thread, slightly. Like I said, it is hard to tell when the thread's so damaged. So trying to put this into the thread in the sump, it sort of doesn't want to go in, and then when it does start, it tries to sort of cock sideways and then binds up, and it could just be shit in the threads from this bolt, this one here. Stripping, it might be just stuff caught in the threads, but I'm not about to risk stripping out the actual threads in the sump, because I'd rather just stick to a weeping sump plug than have them be completely stripped out, because obviously that is an engine out job to fix, which is just not happening in a hurry. So I would rather go back to my thread tape, maybe reuse this washer that came in that kit, that crush washer instead of a copper one, and even maybe RTV the washer and the sump and the bolt, just to get it to seal, because even then I'd rather have a weeping sump than have this damaged. It's still not ideal, the fact that you know, a bit worried that this might just fall out and I'll lose on my oil, but again, it is what it is. You know, if it falls out and I bin the motor, well then the motor's got to come out anyway, so I'll fix the sump then. So I really do wish I picked this up before I put the engine together. Sort of at this stage wishing that even when I figured it out that I redid another sump, but I just didn't want to go through the effort. Definitely should have in hindsight, but anyway, you get that. What I might do is have a quick look around, see if I've got any other bolts that might fit. May have some lying around, I don't know. Worth checking at least. And then, yeah, I'll go from there. If I have to reuse this one, I've got to reuse this one. It is what it is. Alrighty, so I've got nothing else this size in this fine thread, so just on the old thread tape, gas thread tape, the old bung up. Gonna use this new crush washer which came with the new one, and I'm also gonna RTV the top and up, above and below the crush washer. Obviously this is very much not ideal, but it's my only real hope to get it to seal properly, because I cannot do it up very tight with the risk of obviously damaging the threads in the sump, which would be a nightmare for that to happen. So bit nervous about doing this, but it's going to be what it's going to be. Obviously you're not supposed to you're supposed to keep this dry from oil for like 24 hours to allow it to go off properly and all that sort of stuff, but I'm just going to have to do what I'm going to have to do, so fingers crossed this works out. So that's my little creation. Nice. Alrighty, so I've done that up as tight as I'm game to. So with any luck, that little contraption stops it from weeping out. As long as it stays a weep, that's alright. But that is as tight as I'm game to do that plug the way it is. Hopefully it's okay. Righto, so upon closer inspection of the oil that came out of it, you can see how thin it's gotten. It's yeah, it's gone very thin just from being so hot, I believe. It is running in oil. It was quite thin to begin with. I think it was 10W40, which is not like 10W40 is not too thin, but I don't know if maybe it is purposely meant to thin out for running in or whatever. But either way, doesn't smell too fuely. It's fairly clean apart from the fact that it's pretty dark, but there's no bloody, what do you call it? There's no metallic stuff through it or anything. It's pretty clean. I'm pretty happy with that. So glad I went to change it. The oil that I'm going to be putting in is just HPR 10W50. I just went the extra weight because I'm of the impression that once I sort out these water temp issues and get the fan to work properly and get the water temp down, I think oil temp after that won't be an issue. But I've decided I'm going to try that first before I go putting an oil cooler on it, because obviously the less money I can spend at the moment means the more often I can drift, because the more money I have left over for drifting, the more I can go to the track. So if I can get away without getting an oil cooler, at least for this time of the year before it starts to heat up too much, well then I will for as long as I can. So for that reason I figured the oil may get a bit hotter than it should, especially doing track work. So I figured the extra viscosity is going to sort of help. If that oil does get kind of hot, it's going to give it keep a bit more oil pressure. It's just going to be a bit better off for it in the heat of track work. So that's why I've gone to 50. And yeah, if the water temp is okay after I fix this issue and change the fan setup, well then I won't worry. But if after the water temp issue is resolved, oil temp still gets too high, I'm going to have to look at buying an oil cooler again and going to an oil cooler setup. Which again, it's not a big deal, happy to do it. It's just that if I don't need to spend the money right now, I won't. So Anyway, I'll fill it back up full of oil and run it again. All right, that's oil change done. Fingers crossed that sump doesn't leak at all. But yeah, we're all good with oil. So next biggest, obviously the big issue at hand is to get this temperature issue sorted. So now, I've done some research. From the research I did, the RB25 water pump pulley is actually a little bit bigger than an RB31, so it's apparent, and then the RB26 one is actually bigger again. Obviously, this is due to the nature of each engine's, the way it revs, essentially, is what this is due to. So people found, a lot of people, what they do is actually put the RB25 or 26 pump pulleys on the RB30 that are doing a lot of track work, because obviously at very high revs, the standard RB30 they found was cavitating the water because it was spinning too fast. Same thing they do with power steering pumps, essentially. So given that this is an RB25 pump, which is obviously why I had that little leak, it's just a second-hand water pump that I pulled down off an RB25, for anyone who remembers, I would essentially assume that that pulley on there is an RB25 water pump pulley. So that water pump pulley is probably bigger than a 30 pulley already, and then coupled with the fact that I have my 25% underdriven harmonic balancer pulley, I would say that that water pump probably isn't quite where it should be as far as how hard it should be working. So I very much should have RB30 water pump pulleys down in the shed. Obviously we've got a couple of RB30s. I'd assume I'd have one lying around somewhere. So that should be a smaller pulley, which should at least bring the water pump to a little bit of a quicker or a little bit better, more flow. But with the 25% underdriven crank pulley, I should still have zero issues with that cavitating. So I shouldn't have to worry about that, and I would probably need the extra bit of flow, because I'd say, yeah, the 25% underdriven pulley coupled with the larger water pump pulley from the 25, my water pump's probably not doing the greatest. So that's number one thing, is to go and find a RB30 water pump pulley, check and see if it's a different size. The second thing is, when I got this car back from Luke, he actually gave me back my fan hub and fan, because obviously in his EH he didn't have room for it. He couldn't use a viscous fan hub, so he went to thermos. So I have my old viscous fan hub down there. I have also, when I bought a heap of stuff off Luke, before I even bought the car back, he gave me back my old fan shroud, which I actually gave to Liam to use on his R31 because he never had a shroud on it. So Liam's given that back to me because he kept it when he sold his R31. So I've got my absolutely mint R31 fan shroud here. So I got that back off Liam, so big thanks to Liam for giving that back to me. I'm glad he didn't sell it with his car, because yeah, so my plan is to, the other thing actually, so the whole deal with Liam's was, Liam bought a GK Tech fan to use for his R31. For those of you who don't know, the GK Tech fan's meant to be like 30% more airflow than a standard RB fan. But when he went to fit it to his R31, he actually found that someone had put a Pintara fan hub on his R31 Skyline, so the fan never fit. So I had a RB25 fan and hub lying around, so I gave that to him. So he put his GK Tech fan onto that hub, but he didn't use that fan. So I've got an RB25 fan here, which, like all RB fans, has some cracks. But I'm pretty sure the 25 fan is meant to be a bit more flow. So I'm pretty sure my RB30 fan, like all of them, are cracked as well. But I'm just going to see which fan is better out of the two of these. This is my RB30 one. Put whatever fan is better on my old viscous fan hub. Try and find an RB30 water pump pulley. Use my old shroud and just go back to a viscous fan hub setup. So that's pretty much the plan. Because of the fact that I would be going to potentially a smaller pulley, I grabbed some smaller belts to suit. For all of you who remember, those belts that are on there are actually a bit big anyway. I got 820s, I think. So I got an 800 for the water pump, obviously assuming that I'm going to a smaller pulley. The 800 should be good. And I bought an 810 for the power steering. So that should get me back into a better range with my power steering and water pump belts. And these two will make really good spares. They'll be good spares to take to the track, but they're not quite tight enough. Both the alternator and the power steering pump are both on like pretty much the edges of their adjustment for how much they can be adjusted out. So anyway, it's going to be a bit of a process. So first thing is to go down, try and fish out an RB30 water pump pulley, which I'll do now. And then I'll head down to Pintara and grab my old fan and fan hub out, and then bring them back up to the shed, and I'll assess where I'm at when I get back up. Obviously my plan eventually is to go for one of them GK Tech fans when I can afford it. But same thing with everything else I said in this video. The more money I don't have to spend right now, the more I can drift. So I'd rather just, like I said, it's not a particularly hot time of year as far as ambient temps go. So as long as, and not only that, obviously, before when I had the old setup in this car with the viscous fan hub, I never had temperature issues then. I always ran at 82 degrees. So hopefully going back to a viscous fan hub, get me back out of trouble, hopefully get me back down to that 85 degree maybe operating temp, and hopefully that keeps my oil temps down so that I don't particularly have to buy a GK Tech fan yet, and I don't have to buy an oil cooler yet. And that way I've got more money for tyres and fuel and drift entry, so I can do more drifting now, which is really what I want to do. Righto guys, so these are the two water pump pulleys that I found, and straight up you can see it's two different sizes. So you can see how much smaller this one on the front here is, the one on the right there. Quite a bit smaller, so when I take this one off, I'm assuming it's going to be the same size as this one on the left here, and this other one on the right is probably a standard RB30 pulley. So just that little bit smaller, give it a little bit more RPM. Obviously, like I said, if you are running a standard RB30 harmonic balancer, probably a pretty good upgrade for your water pump is to put the bigger water pump pulley on it so that you don't cavitate your water if you're doing drifting. Would only recommend it really for drifting things like this, where it's really high RPM for consistent periods, because they do have issues with your water pump cavitating water, then it stops flowing. Obviously that's a big problem. So, and I've got my old fan hub and fan here. That's the RB25 fan. So upon inspection, I reckon this 25 fan is actually in better condition than my 31. As you can see, all of these cracks, there's a lot of cracks in it, but they don't actually go all the way through the fan. Not to mention that the the 25 fan does flow quite a bit more than the 30 fan, so it is a better fan, and none of those cracks go all the way through. Looking at my 30 fan, you can see the different designs of the blades. So the 30 fan, there was one crack I was looking at while I was walking back up here. This one here, which actually goes all the way through the fan. So that's probably a no-go. Like I said, I've never had issues previously with this setup, and it was doing a lot more RPM than it will be in this car, because it had obviously the RB30 pump pulley as well as a regular harmonic balancer pulley. So this fan should be okay. It should never really be doing the RPM that it would be doing in a standard 25 in a standard setup, the way I've got this car set up. So that's pretty much what it's going to be. I'll put that fan on this hub and use this pulley with a new 800mm belt, my mint shroud, and hopefully that will fix my issues. So I guess first things first, I'm going to have to dump all this water out. I wanted to dump the water out now anyway and put coolant in it. That's probably cool enough to open now. So I'll show you. You can see what color that water is because of that bars leak. So even if it did have a head gasket problem, it would have been very hard to diagnose the way that's milky because of that bars leak that's in there. That's why I sort of thought it would be safest to do a compression test. Even though it didn't have any symptoms, just it did get that hot that I was worried about it. So the other thing that I need to do now that it's had a bit of a run in is do pretty much a complete bolt check. I want to check all of the nuts and bolts, like all of the turbo, manifold, intake manifold. I want to pull this cover off. I want to re-torque the head bolts in the same sequence. Now that it's been run in, and it's been hot and cold, and it's been really hot. And then pretty much a full bolt check underneath the car as well, just to check everything. Yeet these out of here. Trash. Cleaned up this fan and chucked it on this hub. What GK Tech fan? Might not even ever need one. This is the pulley I just took off. It's not as big as I thought it was. It's sort of like in between these two sizes. So this one still is a little bit smaller, just not as much smaller as I expected it to be. And this one that I pulled off is just a little bit smaller than the big one here. So yeah, a bit strange, 3 different sizes. So it's just a little bit smaller than that one. And this one's just a little bit smaller than this one too. So still going down a size, which is still going to help, just not as much as I thought. But anyway, time to sort of whack this back together, I suppose. And hopefully that 800mm belt is okay, so I'll try that now. Got my shroud over there, my radiator ready to go. Yeah, all good. Bloody messy. I dropped all that water and bars leak out, and then I sort of topped it back up and tried to give it a bit of a flush, like ran it again waited for the thermostat to open again, and then dumped it all again. So messy stuff. But anyway, it is what it is. It's getting done at least. Righto, so new belts are a go. They fit quite nicely. Got the fan controller out. Just before anyone asks as well, I know a lot of people were asking me about this fan controller, this Davis Craig unit, when I installed it. No, you cannot buy it off me. It's going back to Luke, who gave it to me in the first place in the interest of me having my car done sooner rather than later. And so I've told Luke he can have it back because I don't need to have a use for it. So, sorry guys, not really my place to sell it. Not going to sell it to anyone. It's going back to Luke. But yeah, it's a pretty good unit. Honestly, what I'm doing here is not to say thermos are bad. I reckon if I had better thermos and had a good shroud, it would have been sweet. Everything would have been fine. But I don't have the room for a decent shroud. I don't really want to go to a push type thermo because I don't reckon it's going to be as effective. So it's just easier and more convenient for me to go back to a viscous setup, which I know works, rather than for me to screw around trying to get thermos to work, because in reality all I really want to do is drive. So this is what I'm going to do. Anyway, getting there. I'll whack this hub on, get it tightened up with the fan. I'll probably have to put the fan and the shroud in and the radiator all together to get it all in. And then once it's all in, I can tighten up these belts, put the hoses back on, and then fill it up with actual coolant this time. Alrighty, so we're all done. That's the new viscous fan hub, all in there, belts are all tight, everything's done up tight. The only thing left to do is to fill it with coolant. So now I just got to pray to the mighty RB gods that this young fan here never actually contacts the radiator for any reason. My engine mounts are pretty good, so hopefully it's all good. But anyway, it's good. Going well. So yeah, it's crazy how much more air actually that fan is pushing, even just like at idle, giving it a few revs. How much more air that fan is pulling is crazy. So hopefully this will be water temp issues sorted. Hopefully, consequently, oil temp issues will be sorted. And hopefully it will just be now dead reliable as it used to be, and I will be able to just do laps on laps on laps on laps on laps and just kill tires, send them to heaven. That'll be awesome. So anyway, still got a bit to do. I'm going to let this warm up. Obviously, I've got to try and bleed the system a bit more, so let it warm up, let the thermostat open and actually try and bleed it through a bit. So I'll do that at the moment. I do have some more to do though. Obviously have to pull that tail shaft out, try and figure out what the go is there. That's a real annoying issue to have, but nonetheless, got to be sorted. I've also got some new caster rod bushes. So pretty much when I built, well, all through this build, I've been thinking I would really like to go to an adjustable caster rod. A lot of people sort of talk to me about cutting caster rods down to get some caster and all that sort of stuff. But when you look at the actual front wheel of the car, it doesn't sit too bad. It actually sits pretty well. And given the way that it drove the other night, just the way it used to, it self-steered really well. Everything was really good. So again, it's that thing where going to an adjustable caster arm at the moment is money I don't particularly need to spend in order to drive. So my caster bushes were rooted. They have been for a long time, but I just didn't want to buy new bushes if I was going to go buying new caster arms anyway. But obviously now that I've decided to just run these caster arms until I can afford to upgrade the setup, I've decided to put new bushes in it. So I've got new bushes. I've also got new brakes. I bought some S13 turbo brakes, which are a bit bigger than the aspirated ones. And they came with dimpled and slotted rotors. So these came from Daniel Eldershaw. So a fair bit of this car and a fair bit of stuff I've got down there ready for the Sylvia actually came from Daniel. So those brakes are going to go on the front of this. And then these aspirated brakes will go on the Sylvia when the Sylvia gets built. So that's pretty much the last thing I need for the front end of the Sylvia, which is cool. And this will have some upgraded front brakes, which will be cool. So I just got to put the calipers on and make sure the TI wheels clear the calipers first. But that's pretty much it, I think, was the brakes, the bushes, and then the tail shaft. After that, I think we're good to go. Good and sweet. Oh, sorry, that's right. The actuator on the turbo. So I'll try that tomorrow in the daylight. I'll go for a drive with it disconnected and see what it does. I do have a Kunagawa internal gate actuator there, which came with a couple of different springs. I didn't buy that. That actually belonged to a very good friend of mine and Liam's and Adam's and Ben's and like that crew. We had another friend who yeah, so that was his. So yeah, I've got that to try out after I figure out whether it's actually the actuator or the gate port. So that's another thing that's going to happen tomorrow. At the moment, I'm just going to persist with all this. After this, I've got to do the bolt check, like I said, and I'll probably do the front end and try and do the brakes and that, and then they can get bled up tomorrow. So yeah, it's coming along. A few things to fix, but it's coming along good. Alrighty, so this thing's just been running at idle for probably a good 10 minutes now. Just letting it run, revving it every now and then, and it is literally just sitting pretty much dead on 180 Fahrenheit. So sometimes it drops to 179, but it's around that 180 Fahrenheit just all the time. So it's not creeping up like it was before with the fans. And yeah, for those of you at home, that 180 Fahrenheit is literally 82 degrees Celsius. So pretty much exactly like it used to be. It is just dead on 80 degrees Celsius. So that's promising. Hopefully that's just how it stays. Oil temps are staying down now. Obviously that's very much a track abuse thing. So I won't know for sure until I get it back on track and really start giving it a hard time, whether those oil temps are going to be all right without an oil cooler. But it's definitely, like I said, it's money I don't need to spend, so it's definitely worth trying. And that way you all know about whether an RB30 can really be tracked hard out lap after lap without a cooler on it or not. So I'm interested to find out, so that's why I want to test it. And but if I do have to get an oil cooler this time, instead of mounting it off to the side like I used to have it, for anyone wondering as well, that's why I've got those holes in my bumper, is because I used to have my oil cooler under the driver's side headlight there. So those holes were put in just for airflow for the cooler. But if I put a cooler on it this time, I'm going to put a cooler between the radiator and the intercooler, just so that obviously the fan is actually drawing air through the cooler, which makes more sense to me. Also, it means it's not in a place that's easy for it to get damaged, so it just makes it a little bit neater, tucked out of the way. Plus, I reckon it'll get better airflow there. So that's just my idea. Anyway, I'm going to go have something to eat and let this thing cool down. Once it's cooled down, I can come back up and sort of start doing bolt checks and everything I want to do. I don't want to do that while it's hot because I don't want to burn my hands. Righto, so I had myself a bit of a bite to eat. Come back and yeah, it's still a bit hot to be doing anything in the engine bay, so I might leave that until I get up in the morning, let it properly cool down. This is my new actuator I was telling you about. So yeah, this belonged to a mate of ours that sadly passed away. So he actually really enjoyed this car especially, which is one of the main reasons I was so stoked to get it back, and that it is quite sentimental to me. And that's actually what Stooge Garage is all about. That's all for Rob. That's Rob's initials there. So that's where our Stooge Garage came from. Stooge Garage is our little crew that you would have saw at the end of the last video of Adam's 1J Crusader, plus there's another bloke, Ben. So yeah, that's our little crew. So pretty special to me to be able to put this on the car. I think Rob would be pretty stoked. But one thing is the actuator arm on this is wrong. So I'm hoping that the China one sort of will come off, and I should be able to sort hopefully something out with the China actuator arm. Either way, it's too hot to actually get my hands down there and get into it while it's right next to that exhaust manifold. So that's going to be in the morning job, all that and engine based stuff. So for now I'm going to go on to my brake and bush upgrade on the wheels. So get this thing off the ground a bit, and that's what I'm going to go on with now, because obviously it's not too hot down there to actually do work. So you can see there the difference in size, pretty substantial, pretty serious size difference. So anyway, just going to chuck a disc and a caliper on, obviously dry, and then just chuck the wheel back on, make sure the wheel's going to clear everything before I go undoing any brake lines or anything. Righto guys, we're a big yes on the brakes. Wheels on, we've got full clearance. Only just. Might be a bit hard to see in here. Yeah, we've just got clearance on the wheel, but just is enough. Inch or a mile, am I right? So, big yes on the brake upgrade. So this thing's going to be a bit of a weapon now. I don't know if any of you are familiar with how it used to be set up, but I used to have Z33 brakes on the front, or R33 or Z33? Can't remember. Z32, sorry. Z32 brakes on the front. I can't remember if they're R33 brakes or Z32 brakes. Either way, I've still got them. I'm keeping them handy for my Crusader build, but I didn't want to go back to those brakes. I didn't want to put them back on this car. I even actually have a set of Z32 rotors which have been machined and drilled for 4-stud, so that you can go the Z32 brakes on 4-stud. But I didn't want to go back to those brakes simply because I really wanted to run small wheels on this car this time around, and those brakes were a real pain in the ass because I could never find wheels to fit over them. So anyway, this is awesome that I've got these brakes, which are obviously massively adequate for what I'm doing, and they fit these wheels over them, so that's awesome. Pretty stoked. So anyway, time to actually change the lines over, I suppose, and do the other side and change the lines over. All done. I love how easy brake upgrades are. I can say that now that it's done. I was going to say it before, but then I was like, oh, if I say it before I do it, something's going to happen and it's going to turn into a real pain in the ass. So I thought I better not, but now that's done, I can say it's cool how easy it is just to swap brakes over. That's pretty cool. So all I do in the morning is get the old man to help me bleed these up, because obviously they need to be bled. And yeah, got S13 turbo brakes on the big rig, so it's pretty cool. This car just sort of keeps getting better. I'm pretty excited about this, pretty excited about how much driving I've got lined up, pretty excited about things that are going on. Awesome. Adam's Cressy's going. I don't know why. Earlier in this video I was like, I can't say that because they haven't seen it yet, but then I was like, well, you're not going to see this until after you know anyway. So with Adam's Cressy going, this thing going so well, V80 finished, doing heaps of driving. Hopefully Adam's Cressy will be on the road and he'll be driving soon. Yeah, I'm just super stoked. Plans for the Silvia. That's the other thing. Now I've got this set of brakes that came off. I've got them for the Silvia. Obviously they're just aspirated brakes. Not the best. To be honest, the way my plans for the Silvia are going, I will probably upgrade the brakes on it as well. It'll probably get turbo brakes or maybe even Z32 brakes or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I've got some good plans for that. I might make a video about it tomorrow if I get a chance. But I've got plans for that happening. I've got some nice plans for next year. Just everything's going pretty swimmingly at the moment, as long as this tail shaft sorts itself out. So anyway, now I'm going to look at doing the caster rod bushes. So, as I already went on my spiel about why I'm doing the bushes now and I didn't before. Anyway, what have I got in here? A bag of goodies. Molithane caster rod bushes for an R31. So, yeah, basically whack these in. Bob's your auntie. Probably have to do a realignment, a new bung eye alignment after they're in. But as you can see, these things are pretty wrecked. Well, you probably can't see that. I'll show you when I get them out, but they're pretty rooted, those cast rod bushes. I actually, when I first bought this car, back way when I first bought it, I took it to somewhere to get an alignment. I can't remember where it was. They pretty much just told me, they were like, yeah, we're not going to bother aligning it because it's got way too much camber and your caster bushes are rooted, so it was pretty much useless. And that's why the thing never actually had a shop alignment. After that I was like, well, I'll align it myself and I'll just drive it. Because back then when I built it the first time, I was really in that mindset of do not spend money on this car, so I never did. And I just absolutely thrashed it. But yeah, now that, like, the way that it drove on Friday night, I was like, I can get away without spending the extra money on caster rods and I can just do the bushes. After that, I should be able to get a shop to actually align it properly, which I don't know, I'll probably get to do just to see what it's like. And yeah, after that, should be right. That way, further on down the track, later on, I can look at upgrading stuff. So there you go, yet another relatively easy job. This should hopefully make life a little bit better for this thing. So the old ones are pretty bad, like to the point where, like, if you stabbed the brakes, you could actually feel the movement in the front wheel, like almost felt like a brake was loose or something, like you could feel it jolt. So they were pretty bad. The last thing I really need to do on the front end that's pretty bad is the sway bar link bushes. I probably should have got them as well. I will probably get onto them fairly soon because they definitely need doing. Also, having the car up off the ground, can't see that that sump bolt has done any sort of leaking at all, which is good for now. It's a good start at least. It didn't before either for a while, so hopefully it doesn't start, but anyway, it's a good start. And I was having a good look at my old dual sway bar setup today up in the daylight, and it actually held up pretty well through the night, so hopefully it's going to be alright. The rubbers on that aren't too bad, and it's sort of just, I just did them up as tight as I could. Probably hard to see in the dark there. So yeah, I really am just super confused at how that could be like that, the way it is at the moment. That's just, I know, it's just weird to me. I don't know. I do not understand. But that's definitely, I reckon, what that clunk is when you take off. I don't know. Strange. It's weird. So Rex took V80 to the beach in Ballina this weekend. And this is the message he just sent me. Went sand racing in Mexico, handing out chops like I'm a fucking butcher. Anyway, the more I look at this tail shaft, the more I move it around, the more I don't know, it's weird. I just don't understand how it could be any different. Like if you push the yoke back, it still does the same thing. If you like put the yoke forward more, it still does the same thing. I just can't figure it out. I don't understand it. I'm gonna try and do a bit of research on it, because I do know that these R31 center bearings are renowned for not being very good, but that's just weird. From what I can see, there's no actual damage to that rubber around the bearing. It almost just feels like the rubber just doesn't have enough density to hold the tail shaft in the center. It's just like the rubber's too soft, tail shaft's just resting actually on the loop. It does it when you push it in, does it when you pull it back. I don't know, yeah, I can't figure it out. So I don't know if it's actually meant to do that. Like, I don't know if it's meant to hold, that rubber's meant to hold it in the center of that loop. I'd assume that's what it's for. Or whether it's meant to be just a dampener. Either way, it's not doing its job very well, because it's not dampening very well, because you can hear it hit the floor when you take off. So I don't know, I can't figure it out. I'm gonna do a bit of research and try and figure out what the hell's going on, because I can't imagine it's on backwards. I'm pretty sure but it's not on backwards. I might go back and watch the video where I did the center bearing on the tail shaft, but I can't imagine I would have screwed it up that bad. So anyway, I'll have a look. Alrighty guys, so got some internet reception, did a bit of research, and from what I can tell, which I can probably agree with now looking at it, is I think it's just like that from misalignment. It's pretty hard to show on camera, especially because I got the mic on top of the camera, so I can't get it up into a lot of places where I need to. But pretty much because car is so low, these upper traction arms, because of the way they go up on such an angle, they sort of shorten it up, which faces the diff, the pinion of the diff down, or the input of the diff sort of faces down, which obviously is then trying to push the tail shaft down, which obviously it's very low and pointed down, so it's just trying to push the tail shaft down against the bottom of the loop there on the rubber, which sort of makes sense. Also, without having an adjustable panhard, you can see it is actually from here. Again, it's probably hard to see on camera, but it is a little bit off center. So it does need to go a little bit to the left when you're standing at the back of the car. Again, RB Factory used to make adjustable upper trailing arms for these. Don't know if he still does or not. I haven't seen them stocked for a very long time, but it certainly would appear that there's not actually much I can do about that issue. I'm confident that it's not the wrong way around, and after being able, because I can move it in and out of the box a bit and see how much movement it's got when I move it in and out, and I'm confident that having it turned around would not make a minuscule difference. I think this is just how it's pretty much going to be while the car is this slow, and while it is like it is, I suppose, without adjustable parts or without a one-piece tail shaft. Even with a one-piece tail shaft, you'd still want to pretty much get this pinion angle a bit better. So I dare say it's just going to be one of those things where I'm probably going to go through center bearings and rear unis pretty fast, just because of the way it's set up. So I don't know if it's worth bothering with. This is what's making the tingy rattle, this thing here. It's just a dust cover for the bearing, which doesn't quite fit on the shaft the way it's supposed to. Doesn't stay there. So what I might do tomorrow is just try and see if I can cut that off while the tail shaft's in the car. But I don't think it's really worth taking it off, because there's not really, like, thinking about it, there is nothing I can think of that I can even do. Like, I don't even know what I do when I take it off. I just take it off, maybe take the CV apart, pull the bearing off, maybe put it back on the other way, and then put it back together. It just seems like a bit of a waste of time. I'm pretty sure the issue is misalignment, and obviously just having a slam car, that's how it's going to be. So Pretty much options for that. I've got a spare set of upper trailing arms, which I could probably cut down. And like I've been saying from the beginning of this build, I could probably cut down a panhard rod and see if that would work. Actually, I think you got to extend the panhard rod. Sorry, pretty sure it has to be extended, not cut down. So yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, sorry. Actually, so do the trailing arms. They have to be extended, not cut down. So they're going to be extended so that the diff sort of levels back out and brings that pinion angle back up. And then yeah, the panhard needs to be extended as well because of the angle it's on, because it's so slammed, and it needs to move the diff that way a bit to correctly align it again. So that's probably things I'm going to have to look into doing. The other thing is I'm a bit worried now that I've actually put fresh caster bearings in the front. It's going to have probably less caster than it did before. I might not be able to, I don't know, it might handle different. Don't know, but again, I'll just try it, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, I've got a spare set of caster rods down in the Pintara as well. So I've got a lot of spares that I can experiment with without taking a lot of risk, because obviously if it doesn't work, you just put the stock ones back in. But I might take some measurements of the diameters of all these things, and yeah, maybe see if I can get some steel, some tube that is the right ID to go over all of these suspension parts, so that I can sort of cut and extend it and weld a few of them up and try a few things. Alternatively, I'll talk to RB Factory about when he plans on restocking some of his adjustable stuff, and like I said, can buy an adjustable panhard, but I don't really see the justification in the money. I think they're about $180 or so, and for something that you pretty much will set once and then leave, I don't know, seems like it's probably just more effective to buy a length of tube that's going to fit over everything and just start cutting and extending stuff. So yeah, I'll have a look, see what I need to do, and yeah, go from there. Anyway, I'm getting pretty tired, and under the bonnet is actually pretty hard to see at this time of the night because I've still got the bonnet on it. So I think I'm probably just going to go have a shower, get an early night, and try and get up early and go to work. Try and get up early and get going early, because I've got to go back to work on Monday. I got the message today, so I've got tomorrow to sort out the rest of these issues. Which, looking at that tail shaft, should be easily done, because I don't think I'm going to do anything about the tail shaft. And I'm just going to hope that it doesn't rip that rubber out or rip the bearing out. So, like I said, it's only when you take off. So it's when you take off and you get the drive shaft gets that initial go, it makes that clunk. Obviously it bounces around a bit in that loop, but once you're going, it doesn't make any weird vibrations or do anything odd. So I'm not particular. I think it should be okay for a little while. If it was making like heaps of vibration, like under big revs and stuff, I'd probably be a bit more worried, but it's driving fine. It's just that initial takeoff thud. Once I get that dust cover off, it's not going to make that really annoying ting sound, so I think it should be okay. I'm going to try it anyway. Worst thing I'll do is destroy a center bearing, which is a $30 part. So, and it's the work I'd have to do now to take that apart and pull the center bearing off is exactly what I'd have to do to replace it. So I may as well just run it until the center bearing shits itself. Anyway, that's enough blabbing from me. That's going to be it for today's video. Pretty stoked the Skyline's sort of just itching towards getting better. Everything's sort of going to plan, which is nice. And yeah, so look out for the next video, which will be the one I'll film tomorrow, which will be pretty much just a full bolt check, bleeding up the brakes, sorting out a few other things, taking it for a drive, checking a few things, and trying to sort out that turbo actuator. And then I'll give it a clean. I've got to sort out some wiring issues with the Falcon, with the trailer lights, and then I'll load up and take it back down the coast to leave it at my mate's place again. And hopefully this week we'll get some sick driving in. I've got to go, I'll fish out some more 15 stockies for those tyres. Hopefully I'll talk to Black Arts Factory that are at Archerfield about potentially fitting some tyres for me while I'm down there, because I won't have a chance to go get any fitted between now and then. So yeah, I'll look at doing that. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you're excited as I am, and I'll see you on the next one. Catch you later.